A steady murmur of announcements filled the bustling airport terminal. Rolling suitcases clattered across polished floors, and travelers hurried to catch flights. Amid the routine chaos, no one paid special attention to a young woman named Sienna. Trim figure, modest clothing, a calm face hiding deeper emotions. She checked her phone often, scanning gates with purposeful steps, as though every minute counted. Near the security checkpoint, a tall man in uniform guided a trained service dog along the lines of waiting passengers. The dog sniffed casually, receiving the occasional pat on the head from cooing travelers. Its vest displayed clear insignia, Airport Security K9. Most folks smiled at the hard-working canine and continued placing their items in bins. Yet when the dog approached Sienna, something unexpected happened. Instead of a quick sniff and pass over, the canine stopped short, ears raised, body tense. A soft growl rumbled in its throat. Sienna stiffened, eyes darting around as the officer leading the dog took immediate notice. The dog refused to move forward, actually blocking Sienna's path, pressing its body against her legs. Startled, nearby officers converged. Passengers paused mid-step, curiosity sparking. Sienna's face paled, a flustered laugh escaping her lips as she offered to open her bag, claiming it was just snacks or medication. Yet the dog wouldn't budge, fixated on her carry-on with unwavering intensity. In a matter of seconds, security tensions soared. Officers asked Sienna to step aside for a thorough check. She fidgeted, feigning confusion. Why this scrutiny over a simple travel bag? But the dog's reaction was clear, its posture never once relaxing. The terminal's hum softened as bystanders watched in suspense. When officers finally unzipped Sienna's bag, they froze. Eyes widened, exchanging baffled looks. A wave of shock rippled across the checkpoint. Something lay inside that no one expected. At that moment, the entire airport seemed to hold its breath. What had the dog sensed? What secrets might this unassuming traveler be carrying? Unbeknownst to Sienna and the gathered crowd, this discovery would ignite a chain of emotional events, unraveling hidden struggles, forging unlikely alliances, and leaving many in tears over what was truly at stake. Sienna stands by a security station, a swirl of uniformed officers around her. The K9 remains glued to her side, a living barrier preventing escape. The hush spreads as travelers slow to gawk. Rumors flit among onlookers. Drugs, weapons, a stolen artifact. Even the officers, Guy normally poised, exchange tense whispers. Her face is a mask of controlled panic. She stammers denials. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. She claims she's simply connecting flights to visit a sick relative. Despite her outward composure, her darting eyes betray anxiety. Officer Perez, the dog's handler, kneels beside the panting K9. He's worked with service dogs for years, trusting their instincts more than any scanning machine. If the dog's reaction was so adamant, something must be off. "Easy, boy," he soothes. But the dog barely glances at him, fixated on Sienna's bag with unwavering concentration. Reluctantly, Sienna hands over the carry-on. Two officers open it gingerly. At first, they see typical traveler's items, clothing, toiletries, a worn novel. But rummaging deeper, they uncover a small, carefully sealed box. It's heavier than it appears, sealed with strong tape as lacking any label. The dog whines, stepping back slightly, an odd mix of agitation and caution. They peel the tape, flipping open the box. Inside rests a simple stuffed toy, a plush lion, frayed at the edges. Confusion ripples through the officers. Why would the dog react to this? They set the toy aside, only to reveal an envelope, thick with documents. Before they can read further, the dog nudges them, muzzle pressed against the plush lion. An officer lifts it up, discovering a hidden compartment in the toy's belly. Inside, a small metal cylinder, like a tiny canister. The dog's training suggests contraband or hazardous material. Tension spikes. By now, a crowd forms at a distance, phones raised to record. Staff hurry to manage lines, preventing a full-blown spectacle. Some children watch wide-eyed as the once friendly dog becomes relentless in its alert. Concern crackles in the air. Airport threats are taken seriously. At the discovery of the canister, Sienna's veneer cracks. She blurts partial explanations. "It's not what you think. I can explain." Fear and desperation color her voice. The mention of a canister conjures terrifying possibilities for watchers. Is it an explosive? Toxic substance? The officers enact an immediate protocol. They seal off a portion of the checkpoint, moving stunned passengers to adjacent lines. Sienna is escorted to a side area, the dog still shadowing her. Her breathing turns ragged, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. She pleads for calm, but the officers maintain strict procedure. As they handle the sealed canister, an officer calls for specialized scanning equipment. Another reads the documents in the envelope, complex medical forms and foreign laboratory data. Their expressions darken, perplexed. In hushed tones, they confirm something about stem cells and urgent transport, but details remain fuzzy. Officer Perez senses an unusual twist. Perhaps this isn't a typical smuggling case. He notices Sienna's trembling hands, the way she hugs her arms as if trying to keep from falling apart. "Ma'am, if there's something you need to tell us, now's the time," he urges gently. Sienna collapses into a seat, tears slipping down her cheeks. She speaks in fits, explaining she's carrying something crucial for her younger sister's rare treatment, stem cells needed for an emergency procedure. The box, she claims, must remain sealed to preserve sterility. She hid it in the plush toy to ensure safer passage without contamination or rough handling. The dog's reaction might have been triggered by the biological material inside. Officers exchange glances. If Sienna's telling the truth, they face a heartbreaking moral dilemma. She concealed medically urgent cargo without proper clearance. This violates multiple regulations, and yet her motivations might be deeply personal, even noble. They must figure out if it's legitimate or if it's an elaborate lie. Meanwhile, time might be running out. Stem cells, if that's what they really are, can degrade quickly without proper storage. Sienna's eyes glisten as she pleads, "Please, my sister, I had no choice." The K9 sits quietly now, tension easing slightly, as though sensing no further threat. But for the officers, the line between contraband and life-saving cargo is razor thin. The entire checkpoint waits, breath held, for the official verdict. Is Sienna a criminal or a desperate sibling racing against time? Word spreads rapidly through the airport that a clandestine container was discovered in a traveler's plush toy. Rumors swirl, some claiming it's a bomb, others speculating it's stolen medical supplies. Sienna remains isolated behind a partition, flanked by Officer Perez and two others. The K9 rests at Perez's side, occasionally eyeing the bag and letting out a soft whine. Attempting to collect herself, Sienna begs the officers to let her call her mother or the hospital staff awaiting her arrival. She insists that her sister's life depends on these stem cells reaching a specialized facility. Doubt lingers in the officers' eyes. They've seen creative smugglers spin dramatic tales, yet Sienna's despair appears raw, unfeigned. In broken sentences, she reveals the full story. Her sister, Lucia, has a rare degenerative condition. A last-chance experimental therapy requires a specific batch of live stem cells from an international clinic. Due to red tape, they couldn't ship them via normal channels. Desperate for time, Sienna took matters into her own hands, smuggling the canister in a toy to avoid delays or potential mishandling. She thought the dog would ignore a plush item. She never dreamed the K9 would detect the biological scent. Meanwhile, the airport's security head, Ms. Rowland, arrives, demanding a swift resolution. She's caught between protocol, any suspicious item must be confiscated or tested, and empathy for the tearful young woman. Miss Rowland arranges for a specialized hazmat unit to inspect the canister. If it truly is medical material, they can handle it properly. Sienna paces in a private holding area, a tangle of tears and frustration. Each minute passing is a minute Lucia may not have. She clutches her phone, refreshing messages from her mother, anxious notes about Lucia's deteriorating state. Officer Perez, empathizing, tries to reassure her while still maintaining a professional boundary. Passengers who witness the scene share videos on social media, fueling speculation. A local reporter rushes to the scene, sniffing out a potential viral story. Service dog nabs mysterious package, terror plot or heroic rescue? The sensational headlines inflame public curiosity. Some netizens demonize Sienna's actions, while others champion her as a devoted sister risking legal trouble to save a life. As Ms. Rowland confers with medical consultants via phone, it's clear that shipping such delicate biological material without declared permits is a serious violation. The stem cells, if that's what they truly are, might even degrade if not stored at precise temperatures. Time is their enemy. Under mounting pressure, Sienna sobs out an apology. She shows the officers the foreign medical paperwork from her folder. Some are in a different language. She points to a letter from her sister's doctor explaining the urgent nature of the therapy. Yes, Sienna says, she knew it was illegal to hide these materials, but her family had exhausted all legitimate channels. With Lucia's procedure scheduled within 48 hours, any delay was unthinkable. Officer Perez, torn between duty and compassion, consults Mrs. Rowland. Officially, Sienna broke the law, failing to declare specialized medical cargo and attempting to circumvent customs. She could face severe penalties. But morally, if the documents are legitimate, sending her to jail might condemn Lucia to certain tragedy. In a poignant twist, some staff note the dog only did its job. But had it not intervened, might Lucia have received the stem cells untainted? The K9's training is absolute. Detect unusual or unregistered biological substances. It saved the airport from potential danger, but also jeopardized a life-saving mission. Now the blame game stirs. Is the dog a hero? Or ironically, an obstacle to a family's rescue plan? The hazmat team arrives, gently retrieving the canister. They place it in a specialized container. The officer in charge glances at Sienna with a guarded look. We'll confirm if these truly are living stem cells. Sienna pleads one last time, please be quick. My sister's time is running out. As they wheel the canister toward a makeshift testing station, the entire airport holds its breath. Will the results confirm Sienna's desperate story? And if so, will the law show mercy, or will regulations stand in the way of a vital treatment? Tension spikes, setting the stage for deeper moral dilemmas and a turning point that might break hearts or restore faith in compassion. Within a hastily arranged corner of the airport security office, two hazmat technicians scrutinize the cylindrical canister. Sienna paces outside the glass partition, wearing an expression of raw desperation. Officer Perez stands nearby, wishing he could ease her turmoil but bound by protocol. Miss Rowland, the security head, awaits updates, arms crossed over her blazer. To maintain sterility, the technicians don gloves and a controlled environment container. They open the canister carefully, verifying temperature gauges. Inside, they discover a sealed vial containing a viscous fluid labeled with foreign medical terms. One technician, skilled in basic lab identification, recognizes certain codes referencing stem cell lines. He lifts his gaze to Ms. Rowland, nodding in astonishment. It appears legitimate, ma'am. Definitely biologic material requiring advanced storage. Sienna's heart leaps at the news, tears slipping from her eyes. She begs Ms. Rowland, you have to let me go. My sister's doctors are waiting. They'll confirm everything. Ms. Rowland weighs her options. On one hand, detaining Sienna for smuggling is standard procedure. On the other, the hamper ticking clock for Lucia's surgery is spelled out in the documents. If these cells degrade, Lucia's chance at recovery could vanish. Suddenly, a second technician flags a concern. The canister's specialized coolant pack is nearing depletion. At this rate, he warns, the cells won't remain viable for more than a few hours. Gasps ripple through the office. Sienna's face pales further. She pleads to be released to catch her connecting flight or any alternative route. Time is collapsing in on them. The security head steps aside to make urgent phone calls. She confers with airport legal advisors, the paramedics stationed on site, and even tries to contact the receiving hospital. The labyrinth of bureaucracy tangles around her ankles. Releasing Sienna with undisclosed medical cargo might breach international regulations, yet refusing to do so means effectively sentencing Lucia to a grim fate. Moved by Sienna's raw anguish and the dog's unwavering sense of purpose, Officer Perez approaches Ms. Rowland. Look, she did break the rules, but the reason might be genuine. We can escort her. ensure the item is handled safely. He suggests a compromise, an escorted flight or a secure handover to legitimate medical couriers. Miss Rowland hesitates, mindful of the potential precedent set by bending rules. Desperate, Sienna breaks down further. "My sister's in critical condition," she sobs. "We tried official channels, but we were denied expedite because we lacked funds. We only had enough to keep her in that facility for a week. If I don't get these cells to her now, she's lost." The raw sincerity in her voice resonates deeply. Even Mrs. Rowland, known for her by-the-book manner, seems affected. Word of Sienna's predicament spreads beyond the checkpoint. Passengers who overheard share her story on social media. A wave of public sympathy surges, some condemning the airport for holding up life-saving medicine. Others caution that smuggling is smuggling, no matter the motive. The airport's PR department scrambles to contain the narrative, wary of looking heartless. Meanwhile, the service dog, coincidentally the catalyst of this entire crisis, paces restlessly near Sienna. Despite no threat present, it seems drawn to her emotional distress, periodically nudging her with its nose. She looks down, tearful. "You're just doing your job," she whispers, stroking its head. The dog wags its tail gently, as if offering comfort. The scene moves onlookers. The same canine that triggered the alarm now appears to sense her pain. Among the watchers is a middle-aged passenger named Rowan, who steps forward. He identifies himself as a volunteer paramedic traveling on personal business. Having gleaned enough from the commotion, Rowan addresses Ms. Rowland. "I can store these stem cells temporarily in my portable medical cooler if that helps. I carry one for my own medication. Insulated, temperature adjustable." Miss Rowland's eyes flick with possibility, yet legal constraints remain. Miss Rowland, the hazmat team, Sienna and Rowan huddle in a tense circle. They weigh if transferring the cells to Rowan's cooler could buy precious hours. But what next? Even if the cells are stable, Sienna remains under suspicion. With the dog's discovery overshadowing official clearance, can they finalize a plan that honors law and humanity? In Sienna's watery gaze, a spark of hope emerges. Maybe the K9's unwavering alert didn't just sabotage her plan, it might also lead to a solution. Forging alliances with compassionate strangers who can help get her sister's treatment across the finish line. The first twist lands squarely. The canister is real, time is short, and the airport stands at a moral crossroads between punishing a desperate act and saving a life. Airport PR teams scramble to handle a brewing storm. Eager reporters already snap pictures of Sienna, eyes red from crying while hugging a worn plush lion. Tweets and live streams brand the situation as a medical crisis hindered by airport red tape. Public sentiment skews in Sienna's favor. Many empathize with a sister racing to save a loved one. Miss Rowland fields frantic calls from higher-ups. The official stance: rules must be upheld. The rebellious voices among staff argue, surely compassion can bend those rules. She consults with legal counsel over whether they can allow Sienna to proceed with a police or paramedic escort. Meanwhile, time ticks away for Lucia. Perez hovers near Sienna, half guard, half guardian. He wrestles with his duty to report a breach of security versus the emotional pull of a woman's genuine heartbreak. The dog rests at his side, occasionally sniffing the plush lion or nuzzling Sienna's hand. Despite the tension, a subtle bond forms between all three, linked by the dog's unwavering sense that something about this is important. The paramedic, Rowan, steps up to Miss Rowland, explaining in detail the capacity of his portable cooler. "We could stabilize the stem cells for an additional day, maybe 2, he says. "That might buy enough time to get them to the hospital legally." Sienna brightens, a glimmer of hope reawakening in her tear-stained face. Miss Rowland listens but worries about liability. Transferring unverified biological materials to a random paramedic's cooler feels unorthodox. Another approach emerges. Miss Rowland instructs a staffer to call the receiving hospital. Within minutes, a flurry of conversation unfolds with doctors who confirm Lucia's urgent therapy. They fax official letters verifying the procedure, urging immediate transport. For the first time, Miss Rowland sees unequivocal proof that Sienna's story stands on solid ground. Nevertheless, Airport policy remains an obstacle. Legally, Sienna smuggled the canister. She's subject to interrogation and potential arrest. Breaking down, Sienna cries, "Arrest me later if you must, but please let me get these cells to the hospital. My sister's hours are numbered." The stark reality grips everyone. Even Miss Rowland's professional facade shows cracks. After intense debate, the group hatches a precarious plan. Transfer the stem cells into Rowan's cooler under a hazmat technician's supervision, preserving viability. Sienna remains under official watch. She's not free to roam us, but they won't jail her immediately. The hospital arranges an urgent pickup at the next city's airport, one with specialized medical couriers waiting on standby. Officer Perez and the K9 will escort Sienna on the flight to ensure no further security breach occurs, effectively making them responsible for her compliance. The half solution offers hope, but Sienna trembles. She begs, "Please, can we leave now?" "The next flight. We can't wait for the one I missed." Mr. Rowland nods, contacting the airline to seat them on the very next departure. Legal concerns linger, but the weight of public and moral pressure spurs them to expedite. As the plan forms, watchers see the K9 escorting Sienna toward the next gate. Whispers abound. She's actually being allowed to go. Some cheer softly, moved by the show of compassion. Others remain unsure if it's a PR tactic. But for Sienna, each step across the terminal tile feels surreal, caught between relief that she might save Lucia and dread that any snag could sabotage everything. Before they part ways, Rowan ensures the container is locked in his cooler, stable for at least another day. He hands it over to the hazmat technician who boards the plane with Sienna and Perez. Sienna thanks him profusely, tears brimming again. He pats her shoulder. "Good luck. You're doing what you must." As Sienna stands at the gate, flanked by Perez and the K9, her heart pounds. The final leg of the journey beckons. This makeshift alliance, airport security, a paramedic, a sister's desperation, has paved a narrow path forward. Yet from behind the gate windows, staff and travelers watch tensely. Will they make it in time? The hush descends once more, preparing for the next turning point when the flight takes off. And Sienna either delivers life-saving cargo or sees her sister's fate sealed by the unstoppable ticking clock. Sienna, Officer Perez, and the K9 settle into a row near the front of a half-full aircraft. Nervous energy hums around them. A few passengers recognize the K9 from social media chatter. Though the flight crew welcomes them courteously, the unusual presence of a fully uniformed officer, plus a dog on a passenger jet, raises eyebrows. The flight attendants already received a briefing. The officer and dog are on official duty, and Sienna is to remain under watch but not handcuffed, given the medical context. Whispers pass between rows. Some watch Sienna's trembling hands, the battered plush lion in her lap. The dog sits calmly at Perez's feet, scanning the cabin with well-trained vigilance. In her seat, Sienna checks her phone repeatedly, searching for updates from the hospital. A new text from her mother reads, "Lucia's doctors say each hour counts. Hurry." She flinches at the urgency, her stomach twisting in knots. The dog glances at her, as though sensing her anxiety, letting out a quiet whine. She can't help stroking its fur, surprising them both with how it presses closer. Soon after takeoff, the captain announces moderate turbulence ahead. The plane shudders, seatbelt signs flashing. The K9 remains stoic, though Sienna grips the armrest tightly, a sweat forming on her brow. She can't afford any flight delays. Every bump feels like a threat to Lucia's life. Perez tries to reassure her, though inside, he also prays they land swiftly. A man across the aisle, hearing rumors, sneers that the officer is coddling a criminal. He makes snide remarks about terrorists disguising contraband as medical. Tension flares. Another passenger hushes him, but Sienna overhears, tears brimming. The dog swivels its head as if picking up on the hostility, but a gentle pat from Perez settles it. As the plane rattles, Sienna recalls glimpses of Lucia in a hospital bed, pale and fighting for breath. She pictures the doctors shaking their heads over wait times, the lines on bills that soared beyond her family's means. This memory clarifies her resolve. She'd risk anything to save her sister. That includes facing arrest if necessary. Glancing at Sienna's trembling form, Perez silently grapples with his role. Legally, she broke rules. Morally, she's a sister on a mission of love. He recalls the dog's unwavering alert. Had it not signaled, they'd never have discovered her cargo. But maybe that discovery also set in motion a legitimate path, he thinks. Without the dog's intervention, the cells might have gone undetected and possibly ruined in poor storage. In a small way, the dog's reaction forced the system to find a safer, albeit dramatic, route. Mid-flight, the pilot's voice crackles. Severe weather in the arrival city may delay landing. Sienna's heart drops. She checks the sealed cooler by her feet, still stable, but the margin is thin. Perez sees her panic and quietly radios ahead. Any chance we can expedite disembarkation? We have urgent medical cargo. The flight attendant offers a sympathetic shrug, uncertain how much they can expedite in the face of weather constraints. Meanwhile, in a parallel scene glimpsed through Sienna's mind or a brief cutaway, Lucia's doctors stand by the operating room, rechecking equipment, wearing anxious frowns. Her mother paces the corridor, phone in hand. The experimental therapy window creeps closer to expiring. A nurse gently reminds them, if the cells don't arrive soon, they risk losing viability. The tension is double-sided, Sienna racing through the air, and Lucia's medical team bracing for a possible heartbreak. Lightning flashes outside the cabin window, causing some passengers to gasp. The pilot calmly advises seatbelts. As the aircraft jolts, Sienna clutches the plush lion that once hid the canister. The dog rests its muzzle on her knee, an unspoken reassurance. Perez keeps his eyes on her, each jolt emphasizing the ticking clock. Can they land in time? The storm-lashed skies reflect the brewing emotional storm, Sienna's fate, Lucia's life, and the precarious line between law and empathy, all colliding in mid-flight. A jolt of turbulence rattles the overhead bins, eliciting gasps. The lights flicker momentarily. Sienna's knuckles whiten around the plush lion, fear overshadowing her usual composure. Officer Perez taps his radio earpiece, murmuring updates to the waiting team at their destination airport. The canine stays steady, eyes scanning for signs of immediate danger to its handler. Some travelers, learning bits of Sienna's story, show compassion, offering supportive smiles or an extra pillow to pad the cooler on the floor. Others remain skeptical, especially the row across the aisle, still muttering about special treatment. The flight attendants hush them, explaining the official directive from airport security. Each minute of flight intensifies the polarized feelings, pity for Sienna versus anger at her rule-breaking. Strapped into her seat, Sienna's mind drifts to Lucia's last phone call. "Don't push yourself too hard, big sis," Lucia had joked weakly. "I'll see you soon, okay?" The memory triggers fresh tears. If this flight fails to land on time, that last conversation might be the final memory she has of her sister. The dog senses her turmoil, letting out a quiet whine. She strokes its ears, whispering, "I'm so sorry, boy, for all of this." Seeing her turmoil, Perez unbuckles momentarily, despite the seatbelt sign, to lean closer, speaking softly above the engine's roar. "We're just half an hour away. Weather's rough, but the pilot's good. You'll get those cells to your sister." His tone, though professional, carries genuine kindness. Sienna nods, biting her lip, too overcome to manage words. The dog rests its chin on Perez's shin, a silent family forming in adversity. Suddenly, the pilot's voice returns. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to severe crosswinds, air traffic control has placed us in a holding pattern. Estimated extension, 15 to 20 minutes. A ripple of groans follows. For Sienna, it might as well be an eternity. She glimpses the cooler's temperature gauge, noticing it creeping up fractionally. If it surpasses safe limits, the cells degrade. She glances at Perez, voice shaky. "We don't have 20 minutes to spare." Perez curses under his breath, calling the ground team again. They confirm no immediate shortcuts, no priority landing can override the storm's risk. Tension thickens. If they can't land soon, Sienna's entire quest could fail. She trembles, tears brimming. The dog presses closer, as if physically supporting her. A lead flight attendant, having overheard the predicament, discreetly offers to store the cooler in the plane's own medical fridge used for certain special items. She can't guarantee a perfect environment, but it might slow the warming. Sienna agrees, swallowing her pride. Anything might help. With Perez's permission, the attendant carefully secures the cooler in a small refrigerated compartment near first class. Despite the swirling tension, a couple across the aisle, initially skeptical, slide a note to Sienna reading simply, "Praying for you and your sister." She musters a grateful nod. A child behind them, curious about the dog, innocently asks if it's a superhero. The dog's ears perk at the mention. Sienna can't help a small bittersweet smile. In many ways, yes, the dog is heroic. Finally, the pilot announces a window to approach the airport. The plane dips, finding a precarious path through turbulent clouds. Each bounce jolts Sienna's heart. She mentally counts the minutes, envisioning Lucia on a hospital bed. The dog huddles close to Perez, unwavering, amid screeching winds, lightning flashes outside. Oxygen mask compartments rattle overhead. Sienna clenches her eyes shut, praying for a safe landing. Perez, calm but pale, keeps a hand on her shoulder. "We're nearly there. Just hold on." The entire cabin is a swirl of tension and empathy, building toward the crucial moment of touchdown. In these final minutes, the flight becomes more than just travel. It's a crucible testing Sienna's resolve, the dog's unwavering sense of duty, and the officer's capacity for compassion. As the plane angles into its descent, the stage is set for the next critical turn. Will they land in time, and what consequences await Sienna upon arrival? Relief or punishment for her desperate smuggling? The aircraft lurches onto the runway, tires screeching in a plume of rainwater. Passengers jolt in their seats, knuckles white. Sienna's breath hitches. She checks the time. They're behind schedule, and every minute that ticks away is a blow to Lucia's slim chance. Once the plane slows, the seatbelt signs blink off, and flight attendants guide them to disembark swiftly. Officer Perez stands, the K9 alert at his side. He nods to Sienna. "Let's go." The flight crew allows them to exit first. A wave of unsettled passengers watches as Sienna, plush lion clutched to her chest, hustles up the aisle. The paramedic's cooler, still stable, is carefully retrieved from its fridge slot. The temperature gauge hovers near the upper limit. They step into a new terminal, greeted by an officer from local police who receives them with a curt nod. Sienna clings to hope that there's a hospital transport or ambulance waiting. She begs, "We must hurry. My sister." The local officer confirms that a medical courier is en route from the hospital. But traffic is heavy due to storm debris. Another delay, another hazard to the time-sensitive cells. Sienna's eyes brim with tears. The dog whines softly, picking up her despair. She wonders if all her efforts, her illegal smuggling, the heartbreak of being nearly arrested, the flight's turbulence, will end in vain. Perez gently grips her shoulder. "Let's keep faith. They'll be here," he says, though tension lines his own brow. An official from the receiving airport intercepts them, brandishing a clipboard. He demands the cargo documentation, Ms. Roland from the previous airport had faxed partial forms, but local rules require more thorough checks. The official tries to direct them to a holding area for special cargo clearance. Sienna's face goes pale. She can't afford another waiting line. Officer Perez firmly states that this is an urgent medical scenario. He flashes the authorization from Mrs. Roland. The official balks but eventually concedes. Under the officer's watch, they can proceed to a designated exit. Still, more minutes tick away in the standoff, fueling Sienna's meltdown. A small crowd gawks at the uniformed man with a K9 escorting a distraught woman. Whispers swirl about the airport dog fiasco. Some recall headlines from earlier. A local journalist hustles over, camera rolling, hoping for a dramatic scoop. Perez wards him off with a curt, "No comments," but that only stokes further speculation. Suddenly, Rowan, the volunteer paramedic from the previous airport, emerges from behind. In a surprise twist, he took an earlier connecting flight in hopes of assisting upon arrival. Holding a portable medical kit, he rushes to Sienna, clarifying that he's arranged contact with the receiving hospital's staff. "They're stuck in traffic, but I brought a friend's ambulance. Let's get you to the hospital ourselves. Sienna's eyes flood with gratitude. They hustle outside to see a battered ambulance idling at the curb. A friend of Rowan's beckons them in. Thunder rumbles overhead, the storm's tail end trailing across the city. Perez, the K9, and Sienna scramble into the ambulance. The precious cooler is placed on a secure bracket. Siren wails crack the humid air as they lurch into traffic. Now, every traffic jam, every red light, threatens the final link in Sienna's mission. She presses a hand to the plush lion, recalling Lucia's fragile smile. The dog sits at Perez's side, panting quietly, as if aware of the final sprint. On the front seat, Rowan phones the hospital. "We're 5 minutes out. Do you have the lab ready?" Affirmative. They just have to get there in time. The ambulance weaves through congested streets, horns blaring, bystanders parting. Sienna clenches her jaw, tears sliding down her cheeks in silent pleas. So close. But if this last dash fails, all is lost. With law enforcement, paramedics, and the unwavering service dog at her side, she braces for the final confrontation with fate, delivering the life-saving stem cells before Lucia's window slams shut. Somewhere behind them, the earlier controversies, arrests, and rule-breaking fade in priority. Now it's purely about survival, love, and whether a desperate woman's brazen act and a service dog's keen nose might end in a miracle or tragedy. The ride intensifies, setting the stage for the script's emotional climax. Sirens blare, red and blue lights reflecting off rain-slicked roads. Rowan navigates from the passenger seat while his friend drives with practiced urgency. Sienna cradles the plush lion, periodically checking the temperature gauge on the cooler. Perez and the K9 remain near the rear doors, watchful even in this new environment. In the jostling confines of the ambulance, Officer Perez finds his thoughts drifting. This dog, my partner, set everything in motion. If it hadn't blocked Sienna, her cargo might have bypassed security. Ironically, that might have been simpler for her, but also riskier. Now seeing Sienna's genuine heartbreak, Perez wonders if the dog inadvertently saved the procedure by forcing a legitimate path forward. She squeezes her phone, scanning messages from her mother. Lucia's condition is critical. Doctors prepped the OR. The latest text reads, "Sienna's pulse races." She clutches the dog's harness, tears brimming. The dog, calm under pressure, gazes back as though reminding her to stay strong. A reckless driver cuts across an intersection, ignoring the ambulance sirens. Screeching brakes send them skidding. Everyone lurches sideways. Sienna braces the cooler from toppling. Heart in throats, they avert disaster by inches. Rowan curses under his breath, the driver honking furiously. Another precious minute lost. At the next crossroad, a local squad car notices the ambulance's struggle and offers an escort. They cut through side streets, bypassing jammed main roads. This synergy of official help stirs an odd comfort in Sienna. Once a criminal suspect, she's now aided by uniformed officers, paramedics, even a police K9. The lines between right and wrong blur under the weight of genuine need. Finally, the hospital's spire comes into view, a large sign illuminated against stormy skies. Sienna's stomach knots with both relief and dread. The doc said the stem cells must be introduced into specialized lab conditions ASAP. If they're too late, Lucia's chance may slip away. The dog senses the ambulance slow, tail wagging in some sympathetic motion. Pulling up to the emergency bay, medical staff swarm. A doctor in scrubs and a face mask steps forward with a rolling medical cart. Sienna tumbles out, protective hand over the cooler. She tries to speak, but chokes on sobs. The doctor gently pries the container from her grip, scanning the gauges. "We'll get this to the lab. You, officer, paramedic, come with me." Perez, though uncertain if his jurisdiction extends here, steps in to accompany them. The dog trots obediently, used to tense environments. They rush through sterile hallways, staff peeling away in various directions. At last, they reach a specialized lab where a pair of scientists wait, gloves on. The canister is placed into a cryo chamber, and the team huddles around. Now that the cargo is delivered, Sienna's knees nearly buckle. Rowan and Perez steady her, guiding her to a bench. She trembles, tears streaming. "If we made it in time," she whispers. "If these cells still work." The hush that follows weighs like a lead blanket. The dog nudges her knee, an almost human gesture of comfort. While the medical team races to prepare Lucia for immediate therapy, Sienna lingers in the corridor, hugging the plush lion like a lifeline. Outside, the storm's tail end taps the windows, a subdued reminder of the hurdles faced. Everyone present, Rowan, Perez, and the K9, await the lab's verdict. Are the cells viable? Will Lucia's surgery succeed? In this moment of collective suspense, the subplots align. The legal question of Sienna's smuggling, the dog's unwavering duty that ironically both thwarted and facilitated the mission, the community's moral stance on compassion versus rules, all converge on a hospital corridor where Sienna's fate and her sister's life hang on a final word from behind lab doors. This delicate interlude sets the stage for an emotional climax that could bring heartbreak or an outpouring of tears in relief and joy. The minutes drag as Sienna, Perez, the K9, and Rowan huddle outside the lab. Occasional staff bustle by with urgent tasks. Overhead fluorescent lights hum, amplifying the silence. Sienna wipes her eyes, hugging the lion so tightly it seems threatened to tear. At last, a lab technician emerges, mask pulled down. "The cells are intact," she says, voice tinged with relief. "We can proceed with the infusion." Sienna exhales a shaky sob. The technician advises them that the procedure must start immediately. Lucia's doctors will handle the rest. The window is tight, but they're just within safe parameters. Sienna nearly collapses in gratitude, tears streaming freely. Rowan grips her shoulder, offering a triumphant grin. Officer Perez steadies Sienna with one arm, the dog panting quietly as if picking up on the emotional wave. Yet the moment is bittersweet. Sienna might have saved her sister, but she's still under legal scrutiny. An operating room is prepped in record time. Nurses wheel Lucia in IV lines trailing. She looks frail, but her eyes sparkle with faint hope upon seeing Sienna. Though they can't embrace for long, Sienna manages to whisper, "We did it. Hold on." Lucia's cracked lips shape a silent, "Thank you." Then the surgeons usher her away. With the medical emergency momentarily out of her hands, Sienna slumps into a corridor chair, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Perez stands off to the side, phone in hand, updated by Ms. Roland and the local precinct. The question looms, now that her cargo is delivered, does Sienna face arrest for smuggling? The K9 sits at Perez's feet, the dog's gaze flicking between him and Sienna. Perez calls Ms. Roland. "Yes, the cells arrived. The procedure's starting," he reports quietly. Mrs. Roland's instructions echo in the hush. Technically, Sienna violated serious regulations. However, public sentiment strongly supports her. The final call may rest with prosecutorial discretion. Perez's heart twists. He glances at Sienna, who looks more drained than defiant. For 2 hours, Sienna, Perez, and Rowan occupy a small waiting lounge. The dog rests its head on Sienna's knee, an unwavering companion. She strokes its fur absent-mindedly, tears dried but eyes distant. Each beep from a hallway monitor or approach of a nurse sets them on edge, expecting news. Eventually, a masked surgeon steps out, pulling down his face shield. He approaches Sienna, removing gloves. Silence envelops the corridor. "The infusion's complete," he says. "Lucia's stable, but the next 24 hours are critical. If the cells integrate well, her chance of recovery is significant." Sienna's hand flies to her mouth, half laughing, half sobbing. The others release a collective breath. While the staff offers cautious optimism, Sienna can't hide her guilt. She took an enormous risk, circumvented laws, put the entire airport system on alert. She might have saved Lucia's life, but at what personal cost? Rowan tries to console her. "You did what was necessary. Many would do the same for family." Officer Perez stands silently, mind cycling through the official line versus moral compassion. After a wave of relief, attention returns to Sienna's fate. She lingers outside Lucia's recovery room, the plush lion now resting quietly on her lap. The dog, fulfilling its duty, has stuck close, though it occasionally glances at Perez for cues. Will they truly handcuff her after all this, or will the system find a way to show leniency? The emotional stakes have peaked, a life potentially saved, but the law still demands accountability. The final resolution hinges on whether justice can balance empathy with rules, and whether the unwavering canine's role might tip the scale in favor of mercy. Doctors keep Lucia sedated in the ICU, allowing the fresh stem cells to stabilize. Outside, Sienna sits in a plastic chair, ringed by IV stands and quiet monitors. She refuses to leave, eyes locked on the glass window through which she can glimpse her sister. Perez stands near the corridor, arms folded, the K9 resting at his feet, a silent sentinel. In a turn of events, Ms. Roland appears, having flown in after her superiors demanded a thorough investigation. She steps into the ICU corridor, wearing a measured expression. Approaching Sienna, she quietly acknowledges, "Your sister's situation is dire, but we must address your violation." The airline, TSA, and various agencies are pressing for an explanation. Sienna stiffens, dread returning full force. Ms. Roland clarifies the potential charges: unauthorized transport of biological materials, evasion of customs checks, endangering public safety by concealing unknown substances. Sienna tears up, no fight left in her. She only begs, "Please, let me stay until she's stable, then do whatever you must." The hush is thick with sorrow. The canine nudges Sienna's leg, as though sharing in the heartbreak. In a bold move, Perez steps forward, explaining how Sienna's desperate act might have inadvertently prevented further mishandling of the cells. If the dog had missed them, they might have been stored incorrectly or seized by less sympathetic officials. "I can vouch that she wasn't carrying a weapon or illicit contraband. Her priority was purely medical," he says. Ms. Roland listens, lips pursed. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, a small crowd of well-wishers, including some from the airport, gather with supportive signs. Social media is ablaze with "Save Lucia" hashtags, many calling for mercy. News outlets run interviews with passengers who saw the dog block Sienna, lauding her courage once they learned the full story. The moral pendulum swings strongly in Sienna's favor. A lead doctor emerges, verifying that without the stem cells, Lucia's chance of recovery was negligible. Now, there's a real possibility she might pull through. He thanks Sienna for her determination, though he gently acknowledges the legal trouble overshadowing them. Ms. Roland silently absorbs this testament. The law is unwavering, but she sees how each piece aligns to paint Sienna not as a hardened criminal, but as a devoted sister, cornered by red tape. Ms. Roland steps aside to make calls to higher authorities. The airport fiasco, as media dubs it, threatens to tarnish the agency's image if handled without empathy. She re-enters, clearing her throat. "Pending final approval, we may have a solution. You'll face a formal hearing, Sienna, but the hospital and Officer Perez's statements could encourage leniency or a suspended sentence." Sienna clutches the plush lion, tears welling. "Thank you," she whispers, relief battling guilt. Even with potential legal reprieve, Sienna's worries remain locked on Lucia's precarious health. She stands to check on her sister through the ICU glass. Lucia lies pale, monitors beeping steadily. The infusion's success is uncertain. Sienna's knees threaten to buckle again, and the dog, led by Perez, ambles over, offering silent comfort. Mrs. Roland watches, quietly moved by the dog's unwavering empathy. As a nurse steps out of Lucia's room, removing her surgical mask, she beckons Sienna closer. The nurse's face holds a glimmer of good news. "She's responding better than expected," the nurse says softly. "If her vitals remain stable, we'll know in a few hours that the cells are taking hold." Sienna nearly collapses with relief, letting out a choked laugh. But a final question hangs. What about Sienna's own future, once Lucia recovers? She may avoid prison, but fines or probation loom large. The emotional climax stands at the threshold. Will Lucia truly survive? And will Sienna's act of familial devotion spark a deeper shift in how compassion meets law? The entire journey, triggered by a K9's blocking stance, edges closer to resolution, leaving hearts pounding for the final outcome. In the hospital's quiet hours near midnight, Sienna dozes fitfully, slumped in a chair by the ICU. Perez waits near a vending machine, the K9 lying at his feet. Mrs. Roland paces, phone in hand, delivering updates to superiors. Tension smothers the hallway. Each beep from Lucia's monitors echoes hope or despair. Suddenly, an urgent overhead page calls for more staff in Lucia's room. Sienna jolts awake. Nurses rush inside with new equipment. Fear knots Sienna's stomach. Is this a crisis? She tries to follow, but staff block her, requesting patience. She glimpses doctors adjusting drips, reading vital charts. Tears threaten again. Are they too late? Time slows. The beep of monitors throbs in Sienna's ears. The K9 senses her panic, rising to place its head on her knee. Even Ms. Roland stands solemnly, professional detachment cracked by the raw stakes. Perez gently squeezes Sienna's shoulder, both anxious for any sign of improvement. After a tense flurry, the lead doctor steps out, removing gloves with a relieved expression. "She's stabilizing," he announces. "Her body's absorbing the cells. We navigated a small crisis, but she's responded well." A hush of gratitude washes over the group, tears flooding Sienna's eyes. She staggers into the corridor wall, hand over her mouth, sobbing in relief. Rowan, who stuck around, breathes, "Thank goodness." Perez closes his eyes, a faint smile crossing his lips. The dog wags its tail, possibly sensing the communal joy. "Ms." Roland exhales sharply. Some might call it a stifled cry. She composes herself, approaching Sienna. "Your sister, she has a real chance now," she says, voice soft. Sienna crumples to her knees, hugging the plush lion, and the K9 edges closer. She whispers thanks to the dog, to Perez, to Ms. Roland, to everyone. The corridor remains hushed, overshadowed by the raw intensity of the moment. For Lucia, the procedure might be the lifeline they prayed for. With Lucia stable, Mrs. Roland's phone buzzes. Higher-ups have decided Sienna will face a minor charge, likely drop to a misdemeanor given the extenuating circumstances. The hospital's statements and the unprecedented public sympathy weigh heavily on the prosecutor's office. Ms. Roland relays the news. Sienna might get probation or community service, but not a harsh sentence. Sienna listens in tearful gratitude, nearly disbelieving. Perez, kneeling beside her, says, "You'll have a chance to be there for your sister's recovery. That's what matters, right?" The dog bobs its head, tail wagging gently, as if proud of the outcome. Sienna nods, voice shaky. She thanks him, the dog, and Ms. Roland. "I only wish I could have done it legally," she murmurs, eyes red-rimmed but shining. "But I'm grateful for this mercy." In a symbolic moment, Sienna unzips the plush lion's hidden compartment, now empty, and gently removes the leftover tape. She hands it to Miss Roland. "No more secrets," she says. Miss Roland, touched by the gesture, pockets the tape with a nod, acknowledging the closure of that clandestine route. News spreads among staff. Lucia's stable. The contraband cargo was truly life-saving. Some gather to quietly applaud the unorthodox success. Sienna stands in the midst of them, hugging the lion, the K9 leaning into her side, and Perez smiling by her shoulder. Rowan's eyes glisten, moved by witnessing compassion triumph. In that corridor, the tension that gripped them for days releases into a swirl of tears and relief. Sienna's story surges on social media, in stem cell sister, being service dog hero. Instead of condemnation, she's mostly greeted with admiration for risking everything for a loved one. Ms. Roland quietly vows to push for better medical shipment policies, realizing how close they came to tragedy. This moment stands as the emotional apex. Lucia is safe for now. Sienna is neither free from consequences nor harshly punished, and the dog's unwavering sense of duty ironically led to an outcome that may save a life while forging unexpected alliances. The hush that follows brims with acceptance and the promise of new beginnings. Days later, Lucia rests in a hospital bed, color returning to her cheeks. Sienna dozes in a chair at her side, the plush lion perched on a windowsill. The therapy, though still precarious, appears successful. Doctors carefully monitor her vitals, increasingly optimistic. Each day that passes, Lucia regains a spark in her eyes. Officer Perez and the canine visit discreetly, out of uniform, purely as friends. Lucia beams, patting the dog's head. Sienna stands close by, eyes misting with gratitude. They exchange few words, but the bond is evident. Ms. Rowland even drops by once, bringing a more official apology for the stress Sienna endured. In return, Sienna acknowledges she broke protocol. They part with mutual respect, something no one expected when the dog first blocked Sienna at that airport checkpoint. Ultimately, Sienna appears in a brief hearing. With the hospital's testimony and Officer Perez's recommendation, the judge assigns minimal punishment, community service focusing on assisting families with medical shipping complexities. Sienna accepts it wholeheartedly, even grateful. She emerges from court not as a criminal but as an advocate for streamlined medical cargo regulations. News outlets highlight the service dog's critical role, praising how the canine that almost doomed a medical mission ended up saving it by forcing transparency. In interviews, some question the system that made Sienna so desperate in the first place. Others hail the dog as a hero. Donations pour into charities supporting medical flights for low-income patients. One morning, Sienna visits the airport to formally thank the canine unit. She brings an embroidered vest for the dog that reads, "Lifesaver." Though the dog doesn't comprehend words, it wags its tail at her presence. Perez cracks a rare grin, proud of his partner. Sienna kneels, tears in her eyes, giving the dog a final hug. "You changed everything," she whispers. Back at the hospital, Lucia's doctors confirm that the stem cell infusion kick-started a recovery they deemed nearly impossible. Over months of rehabilitation, Lucia learns to walk without pain, her degenerative symptoms receding. The lion plush now sits on her pillow, a reminder of her sister's extraordinary risk. Sienna, exhausted but elated, helps Lucia take her first steps outside in the sunshine, both cherishing this second chance. Emboldened by her ordeal, Sienna partners with a non-profit assisting patients with urgent medical shipments. She uses her story to highlight the bureaucratic barriers that nearly cost Lucia her life. Officer Perez occasionally speaks at the same events, emphasizing the importance of honesty and safe channels for shipping. They unite over the common goal. No family should face such a dilemma again. Some months later, Officer Perez invites Sienna and Lucia to a canine appreciation ceremony at the airport. The dog, now recognized for extraordinary detection under unusual circumstances, basks in applause. Lucia, cane in hand but smiling widely, steps forward to pet the dog. The crowd witnesses a full circle moment, from near tragedy to communal celebration. As the ceremony ends, Sienna and Lucia stroll outside, evening sun painting the runway gold. The dog and Perez walk behind them, discussing how life can hinge on small decisions, like a dog's instinctive alert or an airport official's moral choice. Lucia gently holds her sister's arm, each step a testament to the successful therapy. The plush lion peeks from Lucia's backpack, a subtle symbol of the journey. In the hush of that final stretch, Sienna turns to the dog, her eyes moist with gratitude. "Thank you, hero," she breathes. She thinks about how this improbable chain of events began, a dog blocking her path, officers opening her bag, and the world freezing at the sight of an unassuming canister. Out of heartbreak and fear came renewed faith in compassion, legal compromise, and the unwavering loyalty of a service dog that, by doing its job, saved not just the airport from ignorance, but a young woman's life in the process. In that quiet glow, the story closes on the uplifting realization that even strict rules can yield to mercy when guided by empathy, and that sometimes the smallest, furriest hero can set in motion miracles no one could have foreseen. Thank you for joining us on this intense and emotional journey. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more deep, human-centered tales and share it with friends who believe in hope and compassion. And remember, in life's most critical moments, A single act of honesty or the intuitive alert of a brave dog can make all the difference. See you in the next video.